This time of the year can be a very challenging period to write. Not only do we have multiple holidays, but we have maybe family visiting, we have weather conditions. We in California had multiple fires not too long ago. And all of these things create a challenge for us to be able to write every day and to keep up with our projects. So I want to talk today about how some of these challenging things actually can be inspirations for you to write rather than not to write. So let's talk about that today.
You have a story to tell, but you don't know where to start. Let me show you how to free your story. I teach you how to write and how to dig deep in your soul to release your story and make a difference in the world.
Thank you for joining me here on the Julia Monta channel, where I meet you every Friday to give you some writing tips and to help you hopefully improve your writing, or at least to think about your writing a little bit more. I'm a romance and women's fiction author, and I've been writing for over 25 years. So again, thanks for being here. So let's talk about how we can produce the best writing even through the challenges and struggles of life. Okay, so my number one tip is to write what you know. We hear that all the time, right? Write what you know. Well, this is a perfect time to do that. So you're a novelist probably. That doesn't mean that you have to work on your project. It means though that write what is bothering you. Maybe make a folder that's called My Troubled Thoughts or something, and write down what you're thinking, what's going on, whatever challenges you're going through. Now, I know you're probably saying, yeah, but I really want to work on my novel. That's what I want to continue doing. Well, I know, right? And I do too. But sometimes when things are just so stressful and things are so involved and so much is going on, it's hard to focus on our project, because our project is probably complicated, involves multiple characters or whatever it involves, right? Subplots and all these, different things that make your novel work, and your brain just isn't there right now. But it doesn't mean that you want to stop writing altogether. And also sometimes just putting down these thoughts, or writing in a different format, maybe writing an essay or writing a short story, or just writing a journal, writing a letter, writing something else. You actually don't know if that might end up turning into something else later. So the idea though is just to continue writing what's on your mind, writing what you're thinking, writing what your fears are. Whatever it is doesn't have to be something that's perfectly formed right now. It can be just getting these thoughts down on paper, getting your feelings down on paper, which again may turn out to be something better in the future. So even if it's not fully processed, or it's not something that's structured well at this point, it doesn't matter. The point is just to keep writing, and writing what you're feeling, writing what you know, writing what you're experiencing. The second thing is that you want to tap into the emotions that you're feeling. It's good for you on a psychological level, but it's also good for writing. Have you ever read a book where it was just full of different emotions, and it made you loved it, right? It made you feel things that you hadn't felt in a long time, or just, made you cry, made you laugh, whatever it did. And you were so into it. Probably the reason is that the author made it feel real. And when we write from our heart, when we write things that we are feeling, it feels real to the reader too. So that could be actually some of your best writing, because it's sort of raw. You're not filtering it. You're not channeling it into characters. You're just writing what you really feel. And the best stories come from that truth. It comes from truth, things that are honest, things that you've actually experienced. So for example, I mentioned that we had a lot of fires in California. So it was a few weeks ago that I came home. I went to a writing event, and I came home, and there was a fire a few blocks from my house that just grew and grew and grew and became a massive fire that many people had to evacuate, and thankfully no homes burned, and at least not here in the mountains. I think once it moved up, it did bring down a few structures, but it was very stressful. And through all that, the university where I work did not close the college, even though students were affected by this. They just said, well, we're not closing the college. So even through all having to pack, having to have boxes ready, having to get my animals just in case, have the cat carrier and all this stuff ready, I still had to write lesson plans. I still had to grade papers. I still had to drive over to the university and leave the house and hope that we didn't change from like an evacuation warning to actually having to evacuate. So how do you, when your mind is in 10 million different places, what do you do? Well, I was able to pack all those feelings, all the fear, all the emotions, all the stress and all the anxiety, all of that, right, to use in the future for other stories. So it can be useful to keep all these honest feelings and write about them, put them down on paper so that in the future you can go back to that and say, oh, okay, I'm writing a different story where the character is feeling this kind of pressure, and transfer that into your story. Transfer your real emotions into a story. Okay, so number 3 then is to allow yourself to be vulnerable. A lot of times we aren't, right? We don't allow ourselves to feel these emotions, to even think about what we're feeling. We're so busy going through our day, doing this and doing that, that we don't actually sit down and actually write down how we feel or even think about how we feel. But through writing, it's just you and your computer. And that's the beauty, I think, of being a writer, is that you can actually write down what you're feeling, all of those emotions. You can channel it into a story, but it allows you the time to actually stop and think. And because you're writing, it slows down that thought and allows you to really express yourself and be vulnerable and put all those feelings down. And this isn't something that you ever have to share with anybody, right? It can just be putting it down. You don't have to use it in a story. You can later, but just the idea of being able to slow down, still write, still have your writing time, and not have to create another story, but just write down how you're feeling, like what. And it doesn't have to be a major thing like a fire either. It can be just daily life that makes you stressed out, right? Or that you just can't find the time to do the things that you need to do, and even writing sometimes. And then just put that down. It can be in a journal, it can be in your computer, but you're being vulnerable. You're writing about what you're afraid of, what you feel you're missing out on, what stresses you out, why you feel that you're never going to get your book written, why you feel like you're not a real writer, whatever, right? All those things that we tend to feel, and all the doubt that comes into our head, especially when we're feeling more vulnerable. So allow yourself to do that. Put it down. You don't have to share it with anybody, but at least it helps you to get it out of your mind. And maybe that allows you just to feel a little better because you don't have it all stuffed in your mind. Also think about that, you might want to share this in the future with someone. You don't ever have to let anybody see it, but you might, because there might be other people who are also feeling these vulnerable feelings that you're feeling. And it's kind of nice to share it with someone else, because a lot of these feelings that you're having are universal. We all feel stressed out when things aren't going well. We all feel alone, like nobody else really is going through this. Nobody understands what we're feeling. So writing it, creating an essay or creating a blog or something where you're sharing this might actually end up helping someone else later. And number 4 is maybe think of it as a form of therapy, because you are actually releasing some of these feelings. The act of putting all these thoughts on paper or on the computer gives you a little bit of control. It also allows you to maybe organize your thoughts a little bit. Instead of just all these rambling things that repeat over and over in your mind, you put it down on paper, and you can organize it and see how you're feeling, maybe understand how you're feeling, maybe get a new perspective on the challenges that you're having. Maybe they're not quite as bad as you think, but because you had all this record going in your mind over and over again, it made it seem worse. But once you get it down on paper, you see like, oh, well, okay, maybe it's not that bad. Maybe I don't have to do 10 million things this week. Maybe I can put half of those off until my life gets a little less stressful. Okay, so yes, it'd be nice to have all the laundry clean and all of the floors clean and the house painted and the dogs bathed and smelling great and all of that stuff. But does it all have to be done this week? Maybe not. So once you get it down on paper, maybe you can see that you can breathe. So maybe thinking of writing instead of another to-do list, maybe it becomes a way of just de-stressing, getting your thoughts down, doing your writing for the day, but having it help you as well. And number 5 is to channel the energy of resistance. Now, one of my favorite books is The Art of War by Steven Pressfield. And in this book, he talks about resistance. The whole book really is about resistance. And he mentions that writer's block, really, what it really is just being resistant to doing the work. And it's caused by fear and insecurity and many other things. And so if we get over these obstacles, though, the writer's block goes away, resistance goes away. But I think that it works in reverse as well. So when we're feeling stressed out, when we have all these struggles and challenges in life, we actually resist that as well, right? We don't want it to happen. We resist it. We don't really accept that we are having these challenges in our life. We resist the circumstances. We resist the lack of control. And in doing so, that actually makes things worse. Pressure builds and builds and builds until like we don't know. We become paralyzed. We don't know what to do. So through writing, though, we can release that. We can actually release that resistance because we're putting all of those ideas, all of those stressful things, all of those fears, all of that onto our writing, into a computer. So instead of letting resistance drain your energy, channel it into your writing. I know that during the fires, it was pretty crazy because the smoke was so thick in the air because it was literally that close. There was a point where we couldn't see anything. We couldn't even see where the fire was anymore because it was just so much smoke. And there was really no point in resisting anything because we didn't have any control. The only control we had was to pack up our things and leave. And other than that, we had no control on whether the fire would jump, move, consume all our homes. We had no control over that. It was literally in the hands of the firefighters. So a lot of times we need to let that go, right? We need to let go of our control and our resistance. And sometimes we're resistant to other things, right? We're resistant to illnesses or issues with our spouses or whatever may be happening in your family. You try to ignore it, you try to resist it. But if you just actually say, okay, well, this is what it is, and I'm going to write about it, I'm going to write down my feelings, I'm going to put it all down and just accept it, that this is happening. And you'll end up feeling less helpless and less angry, whatever it is that you're feeling. So that negative energy will fuel your creative energy, right? All that negativity, all that fear, all of that can fuel your writing because you're putting all those emotions down on paper that may later, like I mentioned, become something else, and you may be able to use it in the future in some other creative work. So the cure for writer's block or resisting writing is to get over those obstacles of fear and all of those. The cure for resisting challenges and stressful situations is to write and then let them go. So what we want to do is take those challenging moments and turn them into creative power. And we do that again by embracing that struggle, tapping into that emotion and writing it down. You're using writing as a way to reflect, as a way to storytell, so you can get it out of that loop of your mind and then maybe onto something more productive and creative, like a story, an essay, a blog, an article, something else. Using writing to process our thoughts is incredibly healthy. And for people with creative souls, I think it's super important to get those feelings out into some kind of creative form. So next time that you are feeling overwhelmed, don't set your writing aside. Just use that writing to get through the chaos and to shape your creativity. I hope that this has helped you. If it has, please hit the like, the share button, and I hope to see you again next week.